when we're looking at any type of autoimmune disease, especially in the sense of functional medicine, there are four pillars that kind of need to be in that are at play when the autoimmune disease develops in the body. And these all four have to be steady and holding that table up. And so one of them is genetics. Obviously we can't change our genes, but we can alter how they are expressed through epigenetics. Um, that could be through, toxin exposure, stress, dietary, things like that. So that's pillar number one is genes. And that only plays about 5 to 10% of the role. So just because we have a genetic predisposition does not mean that we're doomed to have a disease. Another one is having a weakened immune system, having an immune system to where it has the incapability of really, one, tolerating what it should be tolerating, and then two, a hypervigilance where it's overactive in the body and maybe misdirected in a way. And then so the third one is, it's called leaky gut or enhanced intestinal permeability. 70% to 80% of our immune system resides in the gut. And so when we're talking about anything autoimmune related, that is literally it's a, I don't want to say a dysfunction, but it's a mismanagement of the immune system. We need to start looking at the gut first, and we need to start looking at, do you have leaky gut? And for autoimmune diseases to take place in the body, leaky gut is always present. And then the last one is to look at what the trigger is. So those are the root causes. So kind of now that we've talked about kind of in functional medicine, a very quick way of saying this is what we look for. For my journey, we did a lot of testing. So we did testing for food sensitivities, because if we have a food sensitivity, it is an immune response to a food that we're eating. We looked at what was going on in my gut. I had overgrowths, as I had candida overgrowths, I had bacterial overgrowths. I had low levels of good bacteria, so our commensal bacteria, that help to actually support our immune system. So I was lacking kind of there as well. And then, of course, I had leaky gut. So I had openings in the junctions of my intestinal lining that needed to be healed back up and needed to kind of put a tampening down of the immune system and kind of heal that gut back up. So she put me on a protocol with supplements. So they were, very targeted supplements for what my body needed, what was actually going on in my gut, and nutrient deficiencies that I was also lacking. One of the typical ones that I even see in my practice is vitamin D. Vitamin D is one that it actually holds together and holds strong the junctions all over our body, in every membrane. So we can have leaky gut, we can have a leaky brain, we can have leaky any type of membrane. And so vitamin D is very crucial for that. So that was part of my protocol. And then she started opening my mind to a lot of things that were outside of my comfort zone, and maybe your audience will be a little more receptive to some of this stuff, because at that time I was an engineer. It was like, if it wasn't scientifically proven to work, it was not like, just wasn't something I was willing to accept. But I was so desperate. I was like, I'm willing to try anything. So we tried PEMF therapy, which I actually found to be very, very helpful. I started doing Reiki, and loved it. I started doing NAET, allergy clearings. That is something that I've adapted but I actually still use that to help clients of mine with food allergies and sensitivities, and find that it works most of the time. So I'm a big believer now in energy work and in using sources outside of what we think should be. I don't know the word I'm looking for, but yeah, I started getting really, really inventive and really out there in my healing journey. I started managing my stress better and dealing with a lot of trauma that I had gone through as a younger human. And dietary changes was a big one. And that was something that was probably my biggest trial and error, because I didn't really have that support with them, which is why I wanted to be educated in nutrition, because I felt like it was one hardest things for me to adapt to, but two, it made the biggest change was when I started changing the foods that I was eating and started looking at food as, you know, choosing a food to actually nourish my body and give me the nutrients that it needs instead of, convenience. So yeah, so it was a lot of that, a lot of trial and error. I picked up yoga, yoga more, things like that. I really started to tune into my nervous system. It was a whole body journey for me, for sure.
Awesome. And I think that's the thing is like we know that dietary changes when we put them into place and consistency. For
Mm.
most people, that's 21 opportunities every week to make a difference in the environment of what their body is receiving. And
Yeah.
then making sure that all the other areas are supported to methylate and to kind of go through and process that is really just as important as well. But giving the fact that food is something that all of us do and all of us need every single day, that can be
Mhm.
one area. But I think I found, sometimes it's easier to change someone's faith than their food because oftentimes people get really attached to
Yeah.
their food and they struggle with all of that. But so thank you so much for kind of giving us a more in-depth background and giving us an idea further about what you went through. And so if there's any questions, from those of us, who are watching this live, feel free to utilize the chat. But I'm going to get into some of the questions that were submitted in advance as well. So Sandra has asked, are there any new treatments for neuropathy? Are you aware of anything that neuropathy, or has that come up in any of the practice that you have been working with?
So that is a little outside of kind of my scope and where I work, to be honest. It's that's a little outside of my scope as far as looking at any type of new advancements, especially in the medical industry, because um, I I I should probably keep up in allopathic medicine more than I do, but I'm more focused on how do we start advancing into kind of the old way of healing the body as it should and coming back to nature. So
Yeah, some more of the ancient kind of healing methods.
mhm.
Okay, so then another question that was asked, and you touched on it, was regarding the foundational principles of functional medicine, which you kind of went through on some of those things. But maybe in this regard, as far as the differences between those principles of functional medicine, if you were to compare them
Yeah.
with conventional approaches to treating, especially if it's an autoimmune, what would you say are those primarily differences and, maybe kind of compare and contrast them?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So when it comes to, conventional medicine, so we've all been to the doctor, so I'll kind of speak to that first. Anytime that we go to the doctor, we come in, we maybe fill out a couple pieces of paper on our health history, maybe some symptoms that we're having, where is our pain, show it on show it on this diagram. And then we sit in the waiting room and we go back, we see the doctor, and we may get 5 or 10 minutes with the doctor. And at that point, then, the doctor may prescribe, us to have some labs and take a look at the labs, or diagnose us. I have been through both in my own personal experience, and, and their job, where they shine, because I'm not anti-allopathic medicine ever. I feel like there is a place for medication. I feel like there's a place for surgeries. I feel like there is a place for having that acute care. But I do think that the way that the system is built up is that they aren't quite made to nurture a chronic situation, a chronic illness. And, you know, I can only speak to what I've heard from clients that I've seen, what I have seen from people saying, you know, on social media and things like that. And then my own history as well.